Hi, Gaurav. How's it going today?
Hi, Jeff. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. So today I'm joined by Gaurav Agarwal. He's the COO of ClickUp. He's responsible for all things business across product-led growth and sales-led growth. So first of all, appreciate you coming onto the show today.
The pleasure is all mine, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
So you have an interesting background, right? You're involved with GTM, but not necessarily coming through the GTM ranks. I'd love for you to introduce to the audience yourself as well, how about your career journey.
Yeah, this is always exciting. So yeah, if you look at my career, I've had a very interesting profile. They talk about careers being non-linear and kind of all over the place, but dots still connect, and that's how it happened with me. Trained in engineering, in math, ended up working on Wall Street, primarily focused on risk and pricing instruments on the trading floor. That's an interesting job to have because you learn how to do true data-driven decision making where you have to make decisions very quickly. And these decisions are not easy. So how do you make fast data-driven decision making and really sign up for outcomes? From there on, I ended up moving to deep tech. Then I did hardware, e-commerce, fintech, and now I find myself in ClickUp. I've been here 4 years. At my core, I'm a business guy. I love understanding how businesses work, how business models work, and then really relentless with execution. I just get shit done. So I pair my love for business with this drive to get shit done. And here I am. Today I lead the business teams, all business teams across growth, marketing, sales, post-sales, pre-sales, data systems at ClickUp, responsible for revenue.
So one thing I love subscribing to is mental models and frameworks to solve business problems. But that tends to bring baggage as well because you might apply a previous mental model to a new situation where you have no precedence and therefore it may not have the best tool set to solve the problems. One thing that I hear you talk about often is first principles thinking. Would you mind introducing my audience to first principles thinking and how you apply it to several or a few scenarios that you face in your day-to-day as COO?
So I don't know what the official definition of first principles thinking is, but I'll tell you what I think it is, and perhaps I'll try to explain it in a way that everyone gets it. It's your ability to break down a set of problem into the basic building blocks and then find the building blocks that you need to solve for and reasoning through that granular level of understanding of what's happening and addressing those problems. So what I mean by that is a lot of people, when you ask them problems, they'll have like standard answers without truly understanding the details of how does that problem, what's the operating structure or the operating paradigm of the system you are a part of. System here does not mean a technical system. System here is a combination of people, processes, and technology. But ultimately, all of us operate in a system. Your household is a system. Your workplace is a system. If you deeply understand the laws of physics that define how your systems work, I call that systems mechanics of your system, then you can solve the right problems. But if you don't deeply understand the mechanics of your system, you will often end up solving the symptom, not the root cause. First principle thinking means that can you reverse engineer a system and break it down into its building blocks and then solve for the right problem that needs to be solved. Now, the reason it's different than what you might call playbook based thinking is a lot of times people apply the same playbook to a set of problems that look similar. But the fundamental assumption is flawed because the world is not the same. The world today is very different than the world we were in 5 years ago versus the world we were in 10 years ago. And these macro cycles are happening, these big changes in the world are happening within such short time frames that your playbooks don't scale. What scales though is your ability to think through first principles, reason through first principles, and solve problems through first principles. And what playbooks allow you to do is it gives you a certain amount of wisdom that should inform your ability to think. But using playbooks as solutions is a very dangerous paradigm. Using systems thinking and first principles thinking as a way to solve problem is is what I think is needed, especially as we go into the AI era.
Now, I'm curious if the specific example of it, right? So you have folks coming into your organization. Often they bring a set of previous experiences. It could be a top of funnel problem, it could be a sales execution issue. What's one example that you recently came through and said, let's do a fundamental first principles rethink here before we apply something that might have worked for you somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, this is annual planning season. The easiest one that I run into all the time is, oh, you want to grow your revenue? Let's hire more sellers. I'm like, do you understand the systematic constraints or like what makes a rep successful? If you can understand that, then you could figure out how many sellers can you hire. But the biggest thing that tips me off all the time is this common prevalent knowledge or like an instinct that most revenue leaders would respond to if you say like, hey, I need you to double your number. Let's hire more sellers. Like, no, like, do you truly understand your revenue machine? Where is where is demand being generated and where is demand being harvested? And you need to think through those levers to then make the right investment. Oftentimes, I see this happening more and more where people just hire more sellers and now there's no patch for them to be successful. And so that's one of the common examples I run into all the time, where instead of taking a first principles approach, a bottoms up approach to understanding how do you drive revenue and how can you make people successful, you take a tops down approach, put some number in a spreadsheet, and then pray to God that spreadsheet math ends up being the right math.
I recently worked with a company that requested to add double the headcount. And when you put, I build what's called a revenue operating model, very similar to a three financial statement
Yeah.
model. And it's tied to what's your top of funnel engine look like to your sales funnel. And this business is primarily inbound. And without a one for one, if not a more than a one for one matching for investment in marketing, all you're doing is dividing the existing inbound pipeline by the increased number of
There you go.
reps, right? So yeah, totally understand. I think that makes a ton of sense. We think about different motions that are out there. I think with B2B, we saw an explosion in sales-led growth. There's the PLG growth, and I think there's two different motions in PLG. There's PLG pure self-serve, then there's PLG self-serve, sales assist, which is either in the form of a growth team or an expansion. What does that look like at ClickUp? And
Yeah.
what is the right frame of thinking for when do you apply one motion versus the other?
Now that's a podcast episode in itself. But you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Okay, let's step back. Effectively, running a business is very simple if you understand this. You will have to generate demand, then you will have to harvest or close the demand, and then you'll have to deliver value to your customers so they keep growing. So, really, let's break down any revenue machine into these three steps: generate demand, close demand, grow your customers. You can do all the three through automation and digital experiences. Let's call that PLG, because what is PLG? It's basically digital experiences that do this work for you. Or you can do all the three using human led motions, which is, let's call them human led growth or sales led growth. And then what you pick depends on what's the profile of your business, what's your deal size, what's your TAM. If your TAM is massive, and you can deliver a certain amount of customer value through self-serve, then you should build a PLG focused version of the business first and then start layering humans where you think there's biggest ROI. On the other hand, if you're in the business where your TAM is very limited, let's say you are selling defense equipments. So then you're literally selling defense equipments to the top 100 governments of the world. You can't PLGify your defense funnel. You need to then build a human led, high touch funnel across building demand, closing demand, and servicing demand. And yes, through that process, you might automate some sort of a invoicing process. That's fine. So, what you pick ends up depending on what your fundamental business model is. Now, at ClickUp, I'm lucky to have a business where our TAM is practically infinite. We have a billion knowledge workers that we could go after. But then, as people start using our product, we also end up building a deep enterprise footprint. So I have a consumer business on one side and I have an enterprise business on the other side. So the way we started was pure PLG. Then we added sales assist, which is kind of what you're talking about, where you're using product signals, triggers, renewal motions, hand raiser motions, and you're trying to like amplify the accounts that have already begun to use your product. And then the third motion is true sales led growth, where a seller is strategically building relationship, a seller and a CSM or a technical account manager. They're all a part of an account team where you're building strategic relationship and doing true sales led growth. We are in that third bucket today. I'm very proud to say that we perhaps have one of the best PLG motions and we have one of the best sales assist motions. What we are focused on right now is nailing that third sales led growth motion and making a ton of progress in that direction.
So it comes to mind, I had in previous experience, a business where I walked in and they were trying to execute three go-to-market motions. And mind you, this is their fifth year of operation. And, when you try to scorecard, or I tried the scorecard where I thought their go-to-market motions were in terms of their efficiency or effectiveness, I thought all three were below the bar. And, one symptom that I thought was, okay, well, perhaps we try to take on too much all at once
Yes.
and try to nail one before moving on to the other. And so I'm curious in your mind, what is an appropriate time frame to test whether this business motion makes sense, and what are the early signs of success that you're on your way to, fundamentally saying this is a core piece of our go-to-market motion?
I mean, that's a great question, Jeff. As someone who came from the growth world, there are a few things. One of the principles I learned early in the process was find the right thing to do first, then do it right. That's one. And second, are you testing to know if it's going to work or are you testing to make it work? They're very different mindset. So for example, let's say I want to test SL sales led growth. Am I testing to see if that motion works? Or do I believe the motion works? Now I'm testing to build the playbook. Oftentimes, what you will have to do, or this is the approach I have taken and it has served me well, if you deeply understand the unit economics of your business and the mechanics of your business, look out and see, are there other businesses, regardless of the industry? Are there other businesses that have been built where that motion has been brought to life? So, for example, PLG wasn't really a thing performance marketing wasn't a channel in software. People would not even look at it. But then you look at consumer apps, which is also software, and consumer apps like Ubers of the world, Robinhoods of the world, they deploy hundreds of millions of dollars in performance marketing. So anyone who is wondering, like, does performance marketing apply to me? You should understand that, okay, do you have a TAM that is big? And do you believe you have a product experience that is perhaps easy to explore? Yes, then can you find similar businesses in other industries that have actually scaled on the heels of performance marketing? If yes, then go talk to a few of them and understand why your motion may work or may not work. And oftentimes, if you do that, then you'll find that, okay, there are these two core hypotheses that will decide, will this motion work here? But then it's not so much about then you've made up the mind that this motion will work. Now it's an execution challenge. So you start iterating on it. So what I found over and over again is you need to take a first principles approach to understanding that has this motion been done in any other industry? And if it has been done, then go learn from them. But now comes the hard work, like operate month on month, week on week, quarter on quarter. Are your leading indicators moving in the right direction? And building a new motion can take up to a few years. So what I do is within the first 6 months of trying it, do we see early indicators? Do we see green shoots, as we call it? Are we seeing green shoots bubble up? So, for example, for sales led growth, it comes down to rep generated pipeline. Are we seeing pipeline grow up? For self serve, the leading indicator would be, are we seeing signups at a very cheap cost? For product-led growth, or like where you're using product as an engagement engine, you would want to see day seven retention. And does the retention curve flatten? So what's important is for whichever motion you pick, you have to truly understand the science of that motion and find proxies, even if those proxies are outside of your base industry, to go learn from those proxies and then start building the motion using those proxies as an inspiration.
I love that. So we're in an age of experimentation right now with some emerging technologies that could eventually be force multipliers. And namely, I'm speaking about AI agents, autonomous workflows. When you think about AI in a business like ClickUp, how does AI get implemented and what core use cases do you find the largest lift?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a world in 4 years where everything won't be AI-fied. It's almost like moving from computers that are not connected to internet to computers to laptops that are connected to internet all the time, right? So I don't see a world where AI would not become prevalent in almost every aspect of what you do. But an easy way to look at AI is if you had a very smart intern that can do the job. If you had 20 smart interns that never sleep, that have access to infinite knowledge and wisdom, and that will do one thing that you ask them to do that really well, then what more will you be able to do? Then what you'll do is you'll pass on all your busy work to those interns and you will create more headspace for more strategic thinking. I think that's what AI allows us to do. And in ClickUp's context, what that means is every team is dabbling with AI, integrating AI in their workflows. And we use ClickUp AI for it. ClickUp has one of the best, most strongest agentic platforms out there. We call them super agents. So we build super agents for pretty much every workflow that an employee does. And we're trying to like improve those workflows, passing on busy work to the AI. Busy work or consistent work that's needed, we pass it on to AI. So we spend more time on the strategic side of things.
So I used to do a time accounting study with my sales teams to identify how they're spending their time. We
Yes.
break out the sales motion into its discrete components. I would do the same thing when I was in FP&A, and there were certain roles or activities that I would take care of that were rote and mechanical, and I would write Python scripts to automate my work. And I find that worked pretty well in an if this then that world. But we're moving into a world where
Yes.
judgment is needed. And so I find that AI
Yes.
agents are now a step up and now can consume some of the work that wasn't possible before in an if this then that world. Um, I'm curious the benefit internally. If you were to think through like the lift, is it a 4x, 5x, and does it differ by department? Like, do you think developers get a 10x lift while go-to-market might get a 4x lift? Customer success would get
Yes.
2x. How are you thinking about that lever?
I think the place where most efficiency has begun is coding or software development. Why? Because AI is extremely good at logical compute and where pattern matching is possible. AI is extremely bad at things that are more abstracted. For example, you tell AI like 1 plus 1 equals 2. How do I go from San Francisco to Los Angeles? AI can answer that. Why? Because AI has been trained on the corpus of knowledge. But I just heard this song AI and this song makes me feel really energized and deeply energized. AI doesn't understand that. Like AI does not have strong comprehension. AI has strong pattern matching. So when things have a logical construct, like if you do this, then you do this, then you do this, AI can be good at that. But when things are abstracted out, like write me a poem that will move people to jump through hoops to go fight for me. AI can't do that because there is this whole abstraction layer where AI cannot answer what does inspiration mean and how do you inspire people. Why? Because it's not a logical thing, it's an emotional thing, number one. And second, there's not a ton of knowledge that is available in the internet to produce things like that. So what I mean by that is a lot of the work that we all do as knowledge workers across all field is more logical than we think it is. Scoring a lead, talking to a client, uh, doing some design work, use our brand guidelines and just create this poster. I think what we will find is AI will make everyone 4 to 5x more efficient. Now, there are still parts of your jobs where you will have to lean into the more abstract nature of work. How do you bring teams together? How do you drive alignment between teams? I'm a math guy. I wish the world was purely logic operated, but it's not. So so then what you will have to be able to do is professionals of the future will have to be able to be extremely good at their job so they can tell AI what to do. If you are not good at your job, garbage in, garbage out, then you'll have 20 interns creating bad work for you. But if you have a strong POV, then you can do that. But then there's a huge element of your job that's about scaling taste, scaling relationships, scaling motivations. And all of those things would need you to be very hands on with the human side of work. And I think you'll have to learn how to balance both. So, all of that to say that AI will make you 4x more productive. That means everyone will be doing 4x more work, 3x more work, doesn't matter. But then, in order to then sell that work, to get buy in for that work, to get everyone to pull in the same direction, the human element for that work would also go up. So, you also have to be very good at the abstraction side of AI.
Now, Um, to counter that a little bit, I was just
Yeah,
thinking through
please.
Parkinson's law, where you give a task a certain amount of time, and guess what? It's going to fill the rest of the time. So I always find
Expand. Yeah.
yes, there's like a task management or deadline or SLA. We get there with sales by raising quotas, right? You can do so with SDRs as well by raising the number of calls. And then with the technology, they're
Yes.
able to meet that new quota. So I think there is, to your point, an element of leadership and management abstraction that still requires on human to human to make sure that we capture and reap the benefits of AI as opposed to capturing the productivity, but then letting that newfound time go to waste.
Yes, I think that's true. I think what will happen is, let's say you're running a prosumer business, you're a small mom and pop shop, you'll be able to do 5 times more work. Great. But now let's take a deep enterprise company. Every employee has their 20 agents running crazy. You have your 20 agents. I have my 20 agents. What happens then? You have an explosion of slop, or you have an explosion of misaligned work. Because if you and me are now not misaligned, are not aligned, previously it was just one person's job and one person's job, and that's out of line. Now it's 20 agents' job and 20 agents' job, and what you have is huge amounts of work done that will eventually go to waste because the alignment was lacking in the first place. So it's very hard to see the future, but my POV is yes, with AIs, more tasks will be done faster, more things will be done faster, but there will be an added tax to driving strong coordination and constantly killing slop. And that's the part of work we will all have to get better at because enterprises, even mid-market companies like ClickUp, we are constantly trying to like align everyone and ensure they all pull in the same direction. Now suddenly, if instead of aligning 1,000 people, if I have to align 10,000 agents, God bless, what will happen?
Now, I always ask this at the end of the show for all my guests. What's one piece of advice that you would like to leave for the go-to-market community?
I'll connect it back to how we started. If you do not understand your system really, really well, you will fail at deploying AI. You will fail at identifying what are you really good at. Copy paste will not work in the future. You will have to be extremely good at first principles thinking, understanding your system. If you don't understand it yourself, go sit with someone who does, but try to truly understand what makes the clock tick. And then you will be extremely capable of using AI to make the clock tick faster. But if you don't understand what makes the clock tick, then you wouldn't be at the edge of your industry. And honestly, that's the biggest gap I see. And that's the difference between good operators and great operators. So that's the one thing I'll leave you with. Like understand what makes your business work.
Well, Gaurav, for those who want to learn more about you and to click up, where would you direct them to?
Follow me on LinkedIn, like go to our website, clickup.com. If you're trying to solve a workflow, please raise your hand. Our sales team would love to chat with you. But please connect with me directly on LinkedIn. You can find me, my Gaurav Agarwal, ClickUp, and you should be able to find me.
Well, it's a full circle moment. Thanks again, Gaurav.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.